If you're a beginner, you probably find it difficult to transition into different movements on the dance floor. You probably are thinking what to do next because there's just so many moves out there and it's very easy to freeze. I identified 4 rules that will help you transition easier and smoother, even if you're a beginner. And being able to transition smoothly on the dance floor is one of the 7 must-known things if you want to feel confident dancing. If you're curious about the other 6, I prepared a guide for you. It's a brand new guide where I teach you 7 steps to start feeling and looking great on the dance floor. So be sure to grab it at a link below this video in the description. It will be super helpful. All right, let's get into those transitions. Rule number 1, change one layer, one body part at a time. So if we have a movement where we move the feet, right? Let's say we'll take a little step tap motion, only add the different layer, only add something else to it once you can do this to the beat correctly. And then we're looking for like the smallest tiny changes. So we don't want to transition to a brand new, totally different move, but let's add one thing to it. So for example, if we start with the foundation of this movement is the footwork, everything else will be built on top of it. Changing one body part would mean adding, for example, a hip to it. So I'm going to just push the hip up, and this makes the movement look different, but because those 2 moves, the step tap and the step tap with the hip, are so similar that it will make it easier for you to transition in between them. If you are already doing 2 things at once, let's say we are doing the footwork and we're doing the twist, so we're moving the upper body and the lower body together, how I would transition into something else is I wouldn't change the feet because they are already keeping the beat for us. I would just replace the twist, so what's going on with the torso, and I would do, for example, a lean forward, right? So it changes how the movement looks a little bit. It's something different, yet it's still easy for you to keep going with the same pace you were going before because we didn't change the feet, we didn't change the footwork. So always change one layer at a time. If you think about it like that, it's always easier to just change the top to what's going on here and not the bottom. Leave the bottom, leave whatever step you were doing for as long as possible and just play around with the torso. Super easy to transition. If you don't want to move the feet, let's say we have a hip movement. The foundation of this movement is the hips. So let's say we're going from the dip and you want to change it up, do something different. The next thing I would do is I would keep it going, I would keep the hip, the motion the same, and I would just add the arms. It changes how the movement looks, yet it's still easy enough for you to transition because you're only changing one thing at a time. See that?
I don't wanna see you go, 'cause baby, I got problems in me. Sometimes it gets hard for me to tell you how I feel.
Rule number 2, you want to group the movements according to the body part that you're moving. So for example, if you know a few different hip moves, I would do them all together without like switching to footwork and going back and forth, right? So do the few hip moves together, one after the other, and then switch to footwork, let's say, and do a few steps, one after the other. Don't mix and match because this will definitely throw you off. This will make the transitions so much harder. So for example, if you know, let's say figure 8, maybe you know the hip roll, I would do it right after. Maybe something else like up and over, hip, right? Those moves go together. And then if you want to transition to footwork, switch to steps. Do whatever steps you know back to back. Right? Footwork. So not only it's easier to transition like that between movements that are similar to each other, but I feel like also it will look nicer, right? Like grouping all of the smooth, kind of sexy movements together to accentuate like the smooth parts of the song. For example, intro, outro, melody. And then when you hear the beat, when it's more energetic part of the song, you can group all of the footwork together. Footwork, torso, groovy moves. It will look nice. And that brings me to rule number 3. It's always so much easier to transition between the moves that have something in common, that are similar to each other. So let me show you 5 moves and I want you to find 2 pairs, okay? We're going to do this one, dip. We're going to do step forward, hip roll, ball change, and step out. Which steps are similar to each other? Find two pairs. Let me know in the comments. And let's check if you were correct. So the dip and the hip roll are very similar because you're moving the same body part, right? The hips, the pelvis, and your feet are in the same position for both. Therefore, when you transition from the dip to the hip roll, it's like you almost are doing the same thing. Same body part, same stance. You're not adjusting the feet. You don't have to make a lot of changes. So that's going to be one pair. The other pair is when we did the steps, footwork. So when we step forward and we step out to the side, notice how similar those two moves are. It's literally the position of the foot that's different. Instead of forward, I bring it out to the side. So when I'm on the dance floor and I'm just grooving, it will be so much easier for me to just change that one little position of the foot. So this is another pair, our step forward and step outside. Now this rule is very similar to rule number 2, where I told you to stay within like the same body part. But if you notice, this one is more narrowed down because this step and this step, that includes footwork, but the footwork is totally different, right? This one, ball change, is more technical. I am traveling side to side. It has less in common with the step forward than our step out to the side. Those two are very similar. So this is what we want to transition in between. Always find the moves that are super similar to each other. And that brings me to rule number 4. This is so simple, yet so overlooked. Fewer transitions means it's going to be easier for you to transition. So don't include so many different moves in one song. I see people try to like force all kinds of different steps. They think it will make their dancing look more interesting, which a lot of the times, especially if you're a beginner, if you're just starting out, it's the opposite, right? We want to have effortless transitions. We want to do the movements effortlessly, and that means fewer moves. It's going to look totally okay. You will look more comfortable. You will have less chances of messing up because you'll be doing fewer transitions. A lot of the times we want to like pack so many movements into one song. We think it will make us look more interesting on the dance floor. I call it struggle freestyle, okay? If you're a beginner, if you're not sure how to do the movements, maybe you're still working on rhythm, trying to include everything you know into one song will have the opposite effect. You will look stressed out. It will look like a struggle to do everything. So fewer transitions, fewer moves is a way to go. You will look more effortless. Everything will flow together. You won't have to think about so much going from one move to the next. So fewer moves equal fewer transitions. Now, to have a full picture of everything that's needed to become comfortable dancing at any social situation, whether it's dancing in the club or at a wedding or a work event, be sure to grab my free guide. It's brand new. I worked very hard on it so that you can start implementing those tips and watch your social life, watch your dance experiences change forever. You can grab it at the link below and let me know if this video was helpful for you guys. I know a lot of beginners do struggle with transitions. I remember I used to struggle with that because there's just so much to do on the dance floor and it's so easy to get lost. But those 4 tips would be a game changer. So make sure you start implementing. Let me know in the comments if you want me to make more videos on transitions. I think I've never done a video on that, to be honest. I think that's my first one. So if this was helpful, let me know so I can help you some more. And I'm going to see you in my next video. Bye.